out there? It's me, Eloise, and today's live stream is brought to you by the letter R for the rage I am feeling after reading part of the 9th month, the rant I'm about to go on, and the topic of today's live stream, which is research. So, for those of you who have watched some of my videos, you'll know that I'm pretty chaotic. This is only like my second live stream. So I do have some notes on my screens behind my camera. So if you see me looking up, that's what I'm looking at. I also have a cough drop because I have a cold, but I could not wait any longer to rant about this topic. So what can you do to be a better author than James Patterson? And it's very simple, and you can research. So there's a quote by Mark Twain that says, "Write what you know." And this can be interpreted in a number of ways. And in recent years, this quote has been used in the context of white authors attempting to include diversity in their books, but not doing it very well, being kind of clumsy because they are not putting in the effort to research it properly. So ultimately, if you have not lived a specific experience, such as your ethnicity, gender, sexuality, a class, even a location, there's a solid reason why you either want to write about it or need to incorporate it into your book, then please, for the love of everything that is good, do your research. And in this digital age, there is absolutely no excuse for you to not learn about whatever experience that you haven't lived. There's no reason why you shouldn't just go take an hour to go research it. The amount of free resources that are out there on YouTube, just do it. So while critique partners and beta readers will hopefully point out any glaring points that you've missed, it's really a good idea to be proactive as you're drafting, to be conscious of the potential for the need for research. If you know that you're going to be including a great gay character and you're not gay, then maybe do some research on that. Or if I have some characters of color, I'm going to go do research on that as well. And if you want to be extra thorough, I highly recommend you look into hiring a sensitivity reader. And there just so happened there was an excellent interview with Heather Howland over on SD Houston's channel, which premiered today, and I'm going to link it in the chat. So if you want to learn more about sensitivity readers, I'm not going to cover that in this live stream. Pop over to Shannon's channel and watch that. It is such a good video. I took some notes, and I'm going to be applying what I've learned to my own writing, as well as being aware of when and if I do need to go hire a sensitivity reader. Because Heather had a really great point, is that the ultimate purpose of hiring a sensitivity reader and doing this research is to have the best book possible. And we'll get into an example of what happens with a book when you don't do your research. That's for the rant portion of this live stream. And finally, this doesn't only apply to lived experiences. This can also be related to geography or history or even certain cultural aspects of a work. So, and I catch myself needing to go do research as I'm writing as well. I write historical fantasy. And so my can't have an author live stream without a plug of my own book, right? So Maiden of Artemis takes place in ancient Greece. So there was a couple of scenes that I was writing. One of them, they are in the mountains. And as I wrote it, I just kind of wrote what I was envisioning. And then as I was reading it back, I realized that the geography sounded a lot like Eastern Washington, which is the area that I kind of grew up in. And I thought to myself, wait a second, let's go drop myself into Google Maps into this area and see what it looked like. And sure enough, there were no tall pine trees and, mountains. It was brown, kind of like what I was imagining, but the trees were not right at all. So I caught myself, went back and fixed that. And the same goes for things such as like crops that they're growing or materials that their clothing is made out of. Tomatoes, potatoes, cotton, that didn't get over to Europe until thousands of years after my book takes place. So all of those things, I needed to stop myself and say, wait a second, this isn't a cotton tunic, this is a wool or linen tunic. So please, God, research your book. So that concludes the educational lesson portion of the live stream. Now let's get into what I know Richard has been waiting for, the rant portion. So you're probably wondering what that has to do with James Patterson and the 9th month. And I know that my title might seem a little clickbaity, but yeah, Richard, I know we just got to get straight to the rant. Because I have a lot of thoughts and opinions. Sorry, hang on. Just so many thoughts. I'm trying to seem very organized and put together. So, what all this has to do with James Patterson. And this is, we're going to pause. So on the playback, we are, oh God. Oh man. Richard's got the jokes. He's here with the jokes to balance out the rage. So we are now entering into the rant portion of this live stream, which will contain some expletives and some topics, which I will dive into further after I give everybody a little bit of a background as to why I am ranting about this to begin with. So what made me read part of the 9th month? So the 9th month is a thriller novel. I'm pulling it up the ebook on the cover so you can see it. Gosh darn it. Classic Eloise. The 9th month. I don't know if you can tell from the title and or the cover, and there's pregnancy and childbirth involved. So I am not interested in reading thrillers at all. I have no desire to read thrillers. But Andy over on Self-Pub with Andy, he's working on his first novel. I think it's his first novel. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. I have no idea the extent. Based off of this, James Patterson has made up a lot of nonsense. So Andy was working on doing research because he's a good writer. He's reading a lot of thrillers to try and do some market research before he gets into writing his book, so he can understand the genre expectations. Oh, geez, Louise. So on his live streams, he was sharing the status updates of this book, and he was saying that it was taking him a long time to get through the 9th month, and certain parts were making him feel kind of uncomfy. And he was mentioning that certain parts focused a bit too much on pregnancy for his liking, and he worded it very kindly and tactfully. And I am here to take away all of that tact. So I was curious to know if it was really that bad, or if, and no offense to Andy, if he was just like a man who found that kind of stuff icky by like birthing stuff. I mean, most men aren't like, ooh, let me read birth books and watch birth videos. So I reached out to Andy to get some details on it. I wasn't interested in reading the whole book, and he said, okay, read the last 10 chapters. So I said, okay, I can do that. James Patterson writes short chapters. So I went to my library app, which I highly recommend you guys getting a library app. If you have a library card, at least in the United States, there's an app called Libby, which allows you to connect your library card to the app, so you can like borrow those library books, audio or ebooks. I think you can do audiobooks too for free. Thankfully, nobody had borrowed the 9th month, so I did not have to wait. Which is saying something. So, let's see. Really quick, a quick overview. So the 9th month was published in August of 2022, and I feel like this is very relevant to this rant because it's not like it was written and published back in the 70s or even the 90s. Like they had access to be able to research all these things. And then it was co-authored by Richard DeLallo, who I know is equally to blame for these offenses, but James Patterson's the one who slapped his name on it, so ultimately I'm going to be shit-talking James Patterson. If you have a problem with that, if you like James Patterson, maybe this live stream isn't for you. Or, I don't know, fight me. I don't care. I have not read this entire book. I've only read the last 10 chapters. And I also don't read James Patterson. So, let me check out the chat real quick. I got Stephen and Richard in the chat, which is a fascinating attendance for my live stream. Let's see. Richard can confirm he has never been pregnant. That's good. And Stephen likes to research motels before going on vacation. Yes. Research on basically everything is great. And he's so into researching thrillers, he's bought my... Oh, good times. Okay, I'm going to... I got a little banner. Because I don't want anybody to come in here and then be offended when they're like, what is happening? So... some preparations for my audience. I am qualified to go on this rant because I am a person who has carried a pregnancy to term and given birth naturally. This qualification was obtained approximately 5 years ago, but that amount of time, in my opinion, does not negate my experience because it is not something easily forgotten. Another disclaimer is that the opinions within my rant are based off of my personal experience in pregnancy and birth, and that everybody's experience with that is different. Some can be really traumatic, some can be great. And there's so many ways to, there's relatively limited amount of ways to have a baby, but there's a lot of different ways to experience pregnancy and birth. So please keep that in mind. That being said, trigger warnings. For those who have trauma related to pregnancy, birth, or graphic descriptions of birth, the 9th month has those, and that's what I'm going to be ranting about. And I will be reading excerpts from the book that, in my opinion, are weirdly graphic. So if any of that makes you feel icky, feel free to skip. And then final warning, I guess, is that this live stream is not edited. So I am probably going to be cursing as I rant about this crap. Yes, Richard, it was... yeah, but worse. Richard wants to know, was it like the men writing women subreddit? Yes. Yes, it was. I haven't even read the subreddit, but yes, it is this is a prime example of how dumb you can look if you go write a book about an experience that you haven't had, whether you're like with pregnancy, whether you're a man or a woman who hasn't been pregnant, or a non-binary, anybody. If you haven't experienced pregnancy and birth and you're going to write about this and you're not going to do the research or research the level that these men did, you're going to just look dumb to anybody who's ever experienced that. So I guess, I don't know. This is about to get really incoherent. And last, I haven't read the entire book. I've only read these last 10 chapters. So I have no idea if the extent of offenses, it covers pregnancy as well. So from what I've gleaned from these last 10 chapters, we have, and I guess spoilers for the 9th month, if you are interested in reading that and haven't read it, I don't know. Don't watch this. Okay. So really going off script at this point. I've got some bullets of the things that really just chap my ass to make sure that I don't forget to bitch about them. So these last 10 chapters, there's only 2 characters in the majority of the three awful chapters, chapters 89 through 91. There's only 2 characters in it. One is named Emily. She's the main character, POV character, who is heavily pregnant. I'm assuming 3rd trimester. She used to be an addict of some sort, which is not necessarily relevant to anything, but I'm just trying to paint you a picture of what's going on. And then her friend Betsy, who is also heavily pregnant, and a nurse. And the 2 of them are alone in like Emily's family country manor or some shit. I don't know. They're sharing a bed to sleep in, I guess. I don't know. Some scary stuff. No, Stephen. Your mom constantly reminding you. No, that doesn't count. Nice try. So these, and also I guess, like, I love men. Men are great. Y'all are great. And I'm not saying all men, blah, blah, blah. But these male authors have the nerve to have 2 heavily pregnant female characters, and they don't, the amount of research that they didn't bother to do, it was like they were just like, what was that class that I took in middle school 40 years ago? What did we learn about that? Oh yeah, that's enough. That's fine. So, I just want to scream. Okay, so the fact that Betsy's a nurse does become relevant in certain parts of this. So chapter 89, Betsy wakes Emily up and is right off the bat, so Betsy's going into labor. And from what I can tell, Betsy's also had children before. So this isn't Betsy's first rodeo. She's a nurse and it's not her first rodeo, okay? Immediately with the graphic descriptions. Graphic descriptions of female anatomy. And so if those words make you giggle, I'm sure Richard's going to be like, she said cervix. But so they talk about Betsy losing her mucus plug, and they like make a huge deal out of it. And I don't really understand why, other than to be like, oh yeah, we're going to use these terms that like aren't really talked about a lot in normal books, I guess. Pregnancy, you know. What the hell is a mucus plug? Are you sure you don't want the answer? I feel like I'm gonna have a reproductive health class as part of this as well. But they, like, birth is icky, but it's also beautiful. But they just really want to focus on the icky parts for some reason, and they really want to get graphic about it. I don't know what it adds to the story. So yeah, in chapter 89, they just also in chapter 89, yeah, Stephen, I think you're going to be learning a lot today, buddy. Fair warning. You're going to walk away from this a bit more educated about how that all works. And Betsy like has this rash, and they like make this really big deal about this rash, and it turns out to be just like some weird allergic reaction because she developed an allergy to strawberries while she was pregnant. And yeah, pregnancy can do some really weird crap to you, because your hormones are just doing all sorts of stuff. But what did that add? Like, it didn't add anything. It could have added, they could have chosen like anything else to add some tension and raise the stakes here, but no, it was just a really weird ad. But so Betsy, I'm gonna save you some of these quotes because they're just like fucking disgusting. And I say that. Hey, Andy! There he is. Yeah, Panda, high five that like button. Thanks, Andy. I'm about to share your trauma with everybody else of reading this book. So Betsy's water breaks, and here's the first big red flag for me that I was like, these guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And they did not bother to do the bare minimum amount of research. So Betsy's water breaks, which is a, sign of being further along in labor than like getting close to having to push and shit. Betsy says, "Get some pillows, put them in the back of the bathtub for me to lean against." This woman, they're expecting me to believe that this woman who is in active labor is going to go labor in an empty bathtub for hours. I call bullshit. Pillows in the bath. It's an empty bathtub. So this is a natural birth. They're in a house. They don't have any sort of pain management or anything. And they expect me to believe Emma's in the chat. Here she comes, the queen of knowing things also about, hi Emma, about having babies, because she has also had some babies as far as I know. So Emma, feel free to bring your expertise into the chat, but when I was in labor, and I'm not going to get into the details, but I did it naturally, and my first contraction started at about 4, and at one point I did get in a bathtub to labor, but it was full of warm water to assist in the pain. And when I wasn't in the bathtub, I was standing, I was moving around, I was swaying back and forth, allowing gravity to do the work. I was not in a hard bathtub for hours. She's fucking Betsy is in this bathtub. I don't even know why. Her water broke not in the bathtub. So what is the point? And she's in there for hours. And yeah, Emma, were you in an empty bathtub for hours to labor? I don't think so. No, it's just fucking stupid. All you have to do is go look up just go on YouTube and search like home birth videos. Why is that so hard? And then chapter 90 is when it really starts getting bad. So they start using this fruit comparison for her cervix. And it's really giving me middle school health class that they are using fruits to help kids like visualize what's going on. What is Richard. Yeah, Richard, you're right. You probably should have eaten after this. Oh, we're going to pause for some education for Stephen. So some women I wanted to have a natural childbirth because I wanted to stay in complete control of my body, which is to a certain extent kind of tricky when you actually do have a natural childbirth, because your body just kind of does the things on its own. But there's also, I mean, like, I wouldn't say a watermelon, but it isn't, they call it labor for a reason. It's not a walk in the park. Trying to word this for Richard's delicate constitution. Yes, Stephen may have that scene from The Office in mind. Yes. There's also what's it called? Cascade of interventions that I personally was not interested in. So, and then I could go on a completely other rant for that. But essentially, if you can have an epidural, and this is also no shame on anybody who's chosen to have an epidural or have a C-section and not go natural. Like, no shame at all. You do what you want to do. But these women are in a house, so it's just naturally natural. Richard, it hurts. There are a lot of bodily fluids. Yes, I'm going to read some really fun lines from the book that talk about those bodily fluids. So back to the cervix. Is it an option to be completely unconscious while giving birth? Yeah. I don't know if there is anymore. I think in C-sections, moms are still awake, but I don't think so. I feel like back in the 50s, they knocked out the ladies and then just did stuff, but yeah. This is going to be a fun stream, you guys. This is great. You guys are not at all going to regret having me do this. Oh, gosh. Okay, so the fucking strawberries. Okay. Minutes pass. This is chapter 90. Minutes pass. A half hour passes. Betsy winces and coughs. And she turns to me and she says, "I'm a goddamn blueberry." Now, if you aren't thinking of what's her face from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, what was the fruit comparison? I'll tell you. Betsy, full of discomfort and anxiety, is sensitive enough to realize that I'm not understanding the blueberry reference. "My cervix," she says, "it's beginning to dilate. The opening is only as big as a little blueberry now. Eventually, it'll be..." I'm totally on edge with this fruit comparison. "It'll be an orange, a grapefruit, a melon." Stop. James Patterson and Richard DeLallo. Straight to jail. Jail. What the fuck? Why? Andy, I'm so sorry you had to read this. So, yes, the cervix needs to dilate to let the baby out. And it goes from 0 to 10 centimeters. And at 10 centimeters, that's when you're fully dilated, 10 centimeters in diameter, fully dilated. And that's when it's safe / productive to start pushing the baby out, which your body will essentially do on its own. It's kind of like if you are have a stomach bug or something and your body is vomiting. Your brain isn't like, okay, vomit now. Your body's just doing it. And your brain's like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing. That's how contractions and birth and things feel. Does anyone ever actually say, "I'm dilating"? No, nobody does. No, never. They say, that's what they say. Yes, poor Andy had to read all of this, and it was not thrilling whatsoever. Vomit the baby out. Yes, better, Laura. Sometimes your body, your muscles are contracting so hard that other things do happen. Thankfully, that didn't happen to me. Is it a reflex? The contractions? Yes. So I guess we're just going to do this. So when you're giving birth, your muscles, whatever hormones are like, oh yeah, ding, it's done. Time to boot that bun out of the oven. So you're releasing the hormones, your cervix starts softening and widening, which is where the mucus plug comes from. Think of it as like a very round bottle with a little cork, except for it's like upside down, right? So that mucus plug is the little cork that falls off. So that has to come off before the baby can come out. But then the cervix is dilating so the baby can come out. And as it's doing that, your muscles, your uterine muscles on the top and the sides are contracting to help open up your cervix and then also push the baby out. So it's doing all this there's been women that are in like comas that have given birth to babies because your body just does it. It's amazing and terrifying all at once. And the closest, for me, it felt like I was on a roller coaster where I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna hang on. Do fathers actually experience phantom pregnancy symptoms, or is that hooey? I don't know. My husband didn't experience it, but I can't speak for all husbands. I personally think that it's, yeah, Richard, it's horrifying. Yes. Imagine being there. Really mucus plug. Yeah. So the fact that Betsy even is able to, like, she's this far along in her birth, her labor, that she's even able to like talk and articulate through this is just nonsense. It's stupid. And then that she's going to like educate Emily, who I think they were in birthing classes together. So I'm not sure why Emily's like, oh, I don't know what's happening. It's just very heavy-handed for these male authors to be like, we know what we're talking about. We know what a cervix is. And they definitely get bigger like a melon. For Pete's sake. And then I guess this segues nicely into later. I'm just gonna, since Richard's eating, should I read this really great line? Should I read it? Was I getting warm with a pineapple ring reference? I mean, you're not eating. Oh, perfect. Well, then for your appetite, here's an example of the unnecessary, gross descriptions. Betsy's liquidy reddish crotch area looks magnificent to me. I think I see a baby's head crowning, although I probably don't. Probably I wouldn't even know. No, yeah, you'd know. You would know. You would know if you saw a baby crowning. Okay. So that's just one of the many. Why? This is a New York Times bestselling author, supposedly, and you're what the fuck? But that understanding of the cervix thing also comes into play later here, where hang on, I gotta find it. Okay. So chapter 91, approximately 2 hours later. So this poor woman, Betsy, has been laboring in an empty bathtub with some fucking pillows for over 2 hours. I can't even, to be honest, after a particularly large meal, I can go. That's disgusting. But yes, I'm not going to get into that. If you know, you know. Emma knows. So, okay, chapter 91. Betsy announces, now moaning and trying to inhale and exhale in a formal cadence way. I'm an apple or an orange. I've got to start pushing. Okay, if you're at the point where you've got to start pushing, you are not forming articulate sentences. No. So now, and I feel like I need to share an overview of my experience to see, like, provide supporting documentation of why this is just bullshit. So I had my first contraction at 4 p.m. on a Friday night, and I was able to talk and walk. I went to the dog park and really freaked out a guy at the dog park because I was already 2 weeks past due. And so I'm standing there kind of like swaying at the dog park. And he's like, oh, when are you due? And I was like, 2 weeks ago. And he's like, oh. And then we're talking, and then I suddenly stop talking because I reached a point. There's different stages in labor where you're having contractions, but you can talk. And then you're having contractions, but you can breathe through it. You have to concentrate a bit more on mentally getting through that pain. And then you get to the point where you have to start vocalizing. And then you get to the point where you're just along for the ride. So by the time I had to start vocalizing by about 9 p.m. And it was at about 9 p.m. that we were like, yeah, we need to get packed up, get out of the bathtub, go to the birthing center. And I wasn't really able. So by that point, what happens with the contractions is that they get closer together. So there's this rule of 4-1-1 or 5-1-1, where if the contraction, it's like a little tool for new moms to decide when to go to the birthing center. Because something that happens to a lot of new moms is that they will feel a contraction and be like, oh my God, it's happening. And then they go and then they get checked. And they're like, oh, you're only like 2 centimeters. You got to go home. And it's just this whole waste of time. So 4-1-1, which is the, or 1-1-4, whatever, is the contractions are up to a minute long, up to a minute long, a minute or less apart, and that you've been experiencing them for more than like an hour or something like that, or 4 minutes apart, 1 minute long for over an hour. That's when you should that's when your body is like in business. We're ready to go. So, by that time, when I got to the point where I needed to go to the birthing center, I was in the tub, had to get out of the tub, have a contraction, focus on breathing through the contraction and vocalizing through the contraction, dry off, focus and breathe through the contraction, put my pants on. So like the amount of time that you have to do the thing where you're not trying to work through a contraction is very short. So all of this dialogue when Betsy is in active birthing labor just is stupid to me. And then back to the dilation of the cervix. So Betsy tells Emily, I'm an apple or an orange, I've got to start pushing. And then halfway down the page, she says, take a look, Em. I think I'm there, Betsy says. You're where? I say. Look down below. I think I'm a grapefruit or a melon or whatever the hell I'm supposed to be at, whatever the hell is supposed to be 10 centimeters. This is a nurse, by the way, if we haven't forgotten about that already. Still, and this, I think, is the number one offense that I have out of the whole thing, I find this little section the most offensive. I'm just going to read the whole little scene. Still on my knees, I slide to the foot of the bathtub. Betsy's knees are bent and in the air. Her thighs are slightly separated. I look. Betsy is definitely dilated. That is, in and of itself, proof that they didn't even do a single ounce of fuckery with their research. They don't give a shit because you cannot see the cervix from the vaginal opening. Not only is it proof that they didn't bother doing their research, it's proof that they don't understand female anatomy whatsoever. These people probably have women in their lives and they couldn't even run it by a woman and be like, hey, is this how this works? I can guarantee you, if I'm going to write a POV character about a man having an erection, I'm going to reach out to any man that is comfortable having that conversation with me to say, hey, how does that feel? How would you describe that? Not just like, oh yeah, and it's totally like bonerific. What the fuck? You can't just, it's in there. It's a good, I'm just so mad. Okay, I'm gonna check the chat really quick. It was a watermelon. It's honestly, I don't think it's a watermelon. 10 centimeters, I don't have a ruler, but 10 centimeters is not the diameter of a watermelon. Yeah, it's specific, Richard. She is specifically a nurse, and that's also gonna be relevant later. Steven, stop, or else I'm booting you. Got it? Thank you. Maybe they've never seen a cervix. If you are not an OBGYN, you have not seen a cervix. No, you haven't seen a cervix. Shame, I don't have a wrench. Andy, here you go. Hang on. Man, hold please. I gotta get Andy and Emma a wrench. James. And then the worst part about the whole thing, hang on, this is going to get weird because it's going to be playing and then I'm going to have the chat and then I'm not going to, what, Andy, why don't you have a, here we go. Oh, no. Hang on. Whoop. I want you to be like that. There we go. The other thing that drives me absolutely bonkers, I know what an aubergine is. It's an eggplant, but British. It's a British eggplant. That's a different story for why I know what that is. Not only did co-author write this, then James Patterson was like, yep, that sounds right. And then I'm assuming an editor also was like, yep, that sounds right. And it just got published. And this is in 2022. You can Google, you can watch some videos. I don't understand. And then poor Betsy. I say. That's my British impression. You're welcome. My British fancy person impression. And then poor Betsy is in a hard bathtub with soiled fucking pillows, spread eagle, trying to, no. I just have in all caps in my notes, this woman is on her back with knees in the air in a fucking empty bathtub. And then Betsy is like teaching Emily about de-stressor breaths, which I thought they were in the Lamaze class together. Andy's coming in with extra tidbits of information. Bear in mind, the heroine of this story is super freaking rich. So Andy, why does she not have like some doula or midwife that's there? Okay, this segues into my other point. Yes, for anyone who doesn't know, you also poop a little when you're giving birth. You're welcome. Add that to the list of things you didn't really want to or need to know today. So this segues nicely into the fact that Betsy being a nurse, it's like, I don't know how many books or movies that you've read or encountered where the character is a nurse for no particular reason, because it clearly doesn't impact their thought process or their knowledge or anything. Like, they're a nurse and then they're still stupid. My sister is a nurse and she would not say or do any of this dumb shit. So Betsy is a nurse. She has in chapter 90, she tells Emily to get a pill bottle with small blue pills. Benezapril. Benezapril, I say, you have high blood pressure. When did you get your medical degree? Betsy says. We are both pregnant, and Dr. Craven prescribed me this stuff for my high blood pressure. So you're telling me in this thriller novel with both of these women on high blood pressure medication, you're not even going to have like a pre-eclampsia scare or anything? Like, you could raise the tension so easily with like pregnancy and birth and like shit that could go wrong. And instead you choose to give Betsy some random allergy to fucking strawberries that is not at all relevant to what ends up happening in the book whatsoever. I think the small blue pill moment was about 9 months prior to this. Oh gosh. Yeah, probably. So she has so later Betsy says in regards to these pills, to go that like, oh, don't worry about the bleeding. That's why I took the pills. And like, I'd been carrying them around with me for just in case. But at no point does Betsy, the nurse, say, hey, go into my bag and get the little birthing kit that has gloves and rubbing alcohol and, I don't know, surgical scissors to cut the umbilical cord. What? It says in chapter 92, the umbilical cord, Betsy told me that neither the baby nor mother would feel the slice. Teeth, knife, scissors. Don't ask me which method I used. I might remember. If you had surgical scissors, you could just use those. I don't know. This is another example of them being like, oh, we know what we're talking about. It won't hurt the mother or the baby. Yeah, we read that one book in 5th grade. Just, it was so bizarre. It was so bizarre. I don't know what it added. I don't know what it added whatsoever. And then on top of that, Betsy says, she screams, this hurts like shit. This sucks. I'm never doing this again. You're ready to push, I say. Fuck you, Betsy says. Then she says, shit, there's something wrong down there. I reposition myself for a clear view of Betsy's cervix. This time, not more than a minute later, I see there's some liquid on the floor of the bathtub. I think it's urine, but it's sort of brownish, and it might be, well, this can happen. You know, it's natural. They told us this in class, I say. And then Betsy says, look down there again, Em. Something bad is going on, she says. There's a touch of concern, not panic in her voice. I move, I look. The first thing I notice, because I can't help but notice, is a partial view of the baby's head. But before I can tell Betsy that it's crowning. Okay, also when the baby's crowning, Betsy's not talking. Betsy's not talking. Betsy is probably just screaming. That part is the part that all of the movies will just have. That's what's happening when you hear the pregnant woman screaming in the other room. Is the Ring of Fire. Do with what you will with that name. But before I can tell Betsy that it's crowning, I see blood. Real blood. The blood is streaked with brown and mucousy yellow, but blood. There's blood. What should I do? I ask. How much is there? I panic. How much? A half cup? A few tablespoons? The amount of blood is increasing. Not a flood, but my God, it's blood. Betsy gives a big push, then a breath, then another push. I think that I see more blood. For fuck's sake, enough of the blood. Jesus Christ. When I look at Betsy's face, I also see tears in her eyes. I see streams of sweat dripping down her nose, her cheeks, her neck. A short breath, another short breath, a screaming huge push. I'm really worried about the bleeding, I say, almost at a screaming level myself. Then she sends me info meant to reassure me. It's nothing. That's just the head ripping the skin. They call it nature's episiotomy. So you're concerned 1 minute, Betsy, and then you're like, it's nothing. It's fine. Which one is it? Are you concerned or not? Are you a nurse or not? Why are you saying full sentences when you're giving birth? Doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. I'm just making sure I'm not missing any other ranting points because I think I'm almost to the end of my rant. Yes. Yes, I agree. Play Johnny Cash on repeat. It was so poorly done. It was like, yeah, his whole team of editors and people that were men. And nobody was like, let's talk to any woman who's had a baby. Even just any woman. Even a woman who hasn't had a baby would know that you can't see the cervix by looking at a vulva. So you have to really get in there. You got to put 2 fingers in there and feel where that woman is at with her dilation. I feel like they did just have a birth. Well, at the beginning, Betsy says that she has diarrhea or something, which I'm like, okay, you could have given any other indication that she was in labor than to say that. Doesn't make any sense. I'm trying not to imagine the smell. I can't remember the smell. Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, if you're in a birthing center or with any professionals, any birthing professionals, they are very professional about that aspect of giving birth, and you won't even notice. And a lot of women are really concerned that they did, and they for sure did. But like nurses are just like, boop, taken care of. Don't worry about it. So it's not like that stuff's just gonna stay there. And that's the other thing with this nurse. Like, my sister's not an L&D nurse, but anyone with half a brain to go learn about giving birth, especially a pregnant woman is going to take classes to learn what to expect to give birth, which ties into my final point of why this is so fucking stupid and bad and why you should research anything that you haven't had a lived experience for. It wasn't even I read what was supposed to probably be the most thrilling part of the book, and it was not thrilling. It was just very confusing. And Andy, only you can speak for how bad the representation was for like pregnancy, because I'm sure they were like, oh yeah, I'm pregnant. Like the whole point is that they're pregnant the whole time. So Betsy gives birth. And Emily's also super pregnant, and I guess she starts feeling labor pains, but she's been ignoring them just because her labor pains have just been like back pain. Sure, yeah, back pain is usually like lower back. It starts off feeling like menstrual cramps, which I realize is not a helpful explanation to my male audience right now. I guess like if your lower intestines are upset or something. I don't know. That's the closest I can get for what you might be experiencing. True labor is closer to like when you're exercising and you feel that burn in your muscles, except for it's like all over your abdomen. Really intense. So Emily is feeling these labor pains and is ignoring them because she's like in denial that she's not quite as far along as Betsy, I guess, but is in denial about her being in labor until after the baby's born. And then, hang on, let me just double check the chat really quick. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know either. Yeah, it's really graphic and gross. And like, the problem is that the graphicness didn't add anything to it. You know what I mean? Like if you're writing a scene about war or something and you want to get really graphic to drive home just how disturbing and disgusting it is, and how horrific everything is, then yeah. But I feel like they were trying to get graphic to try and add validity to what they were writing. Like, oh yeah, we know what we're talking about because we get into the nitty-gritty details of it. But it just didn't do anything for me, and obviously didn't do anything for Andy. Their babies can be BFFs. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not invested. It ends before. It doesn't have any sort of after the fact kind of thing. So to extra spoil this book for anyone who hasn't already watched it. So Betsy has a baby, and I guess the main villain is Emily's ex-husband, who after the baby is born shows up at the house and wants to kill Emily to like get her fortune or some shit. And doesn't give a crap that Emily is pregnant with his baby. He's just a real piece of shit. And the characters are just so weird. It's just so weird. Sorry, I'm getting off track because I was looking for a specific quote. And then I saw another part of it that's just stupid. So homie shows up. I don't even know what his name is. What's his name? This is the part that I didn't really prepare for. Ted? No. Looks like Ted. I think his name's Ted. Anyway, he wants to kill her, and so she escapes and is running through the woods for her life, heavily pregnant, and she's still in labor, which just there is documented evidence that when a woman is frightened or feels unsafe, her body is going to stall, is often going to stall labor because it's not a safe place or safe time to give birth. So why is her labor still continuing as she's fleeing for her life? It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Ted, the man, yes, Ted shows up. Probably. Or if you're gonna write about it, do research, number one. And number two, ask yourself, is this level of detail necessary? What does it add to my book? Yes. And it's not just women, it's most female reproducing animals. They will try and find that safe place to give birth because, you know, the babies are helpless kind of thing. And that's also a lot of reasons why a woman's labor can be fine and progressing nicely, and then they get to the hospital and they have either anxiety related to being at a doctor's office or something like that, and so the labor will stall and slow, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to stay home as long as possible for my labor. those are all of the points of the 9th month that really just chapped my ass of just like, wow, the audacity of these men, to these specific men, to write not only a woman, but this experience that they can never possibly have, and not even bother to do research about it. And it's just so blatant that they didn't bother to do research about it. And it's just, yes, Emma, this is true too. And also that it also is connected to this our reproductive organs in general, like women who are nutrient deficient or very sick, they won't have periods and things like that too. Your body is so amazing and powerful. And I think that's the other thing that really just bugs me about this book, is that it chose to focus on the gross aspects of birth as opposed to like the amazing, I don't want to say miracle because it's just science and it happens every day, but like the astounding capabilities of the human body that you can literally just sit back, and it's kind of scary because your brain's like, I have no control over this and I just have to be here, but have your body do this thing that you don't think that you'd be able to do, and then you're able to do it. Oh, Richard. Full stop on out of here. So, to circle back to the educational portion of this video, do your research. If you want to have a better book than James Patterson, do something that he clearly did not bother to do, which is research what you're writing about, if you are not writing about exclusively from your own personal experience. Do yourself a favor. Do your readers a favor. Nice. Yeah, that must be one of the reasons why so many women go into labor or have babies at night, is maybe because they're at home and they're comfy and they feel like their body's relaxed, can feel safe. But yeah, that's nice that you finished before midnight. Mine went from 4 p.m., got to the birthing center around 9:30, and he was out within 3 hours. So that was a ride. And I guarantee you, I didn't say more than a couple words here and there by the time I got to the birthing center. So before I end my ranty stream for the day, does anybody else have questions, comments, thoughts? Richard, do you want to learn some more about where babies come from? Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for attending, and all my moderators for I'm fine, thank you. Thank you, Andy, for alerting me to this awful book and giving me a good reason why I am never going to read James Patterson. I wasn't interested in him before, and I really am not interested now, because it's the audacity for me. I'm offended, honestly. So yes, thank you all for coming to my live stream, and I'll see you next time. Bye.